There are two kinds of people in this world, those who speak freely and those who understand the power of silence. Most people believe that power comes from showing everything, their plans, their dreams, their struggles, their victories. They talk, they explain, they reveal. But history tells a very different story. The most powerful minds who ever lived knew something most people never learn. Information is power, and power is lost the moment you give it away. More than 500 years ago, a quiet observer of human nature sat in the turbulent courts of Renaissance Italy, watching kings, generals, diplomats, and traders rise and fall. His name was Niccolò Machiavelli. While others wrote about morality and ideals, Niccolò Machiavelli studied reality, the hidden motives of people, the fragile nature of power, and the dangerous consequences of saying too much. He noticed something fascinating. The people who lost their power were often not the weakest. They were simply the most open. They trusted too quickly. They revealed too much. They believed honesty would protect them. But as Niccolò Machiavelli observed again and again, the world is not governed by honesty. It is governed by perception, strategy, and silence. Because the moment people know too much about you, they gain something dangerous: leverage. They know where to attack. They know what to manipulate. They know how to control you. That is why powerful individuals throughout history guarded certain parts of their lives like ancient treasures hidden behind stone walls. They understood a simple but brutal truth that Niccolò Machiavelli warned about centuries ago. The more people know about you, the easier it becomes to defeat you. And that leads us to a question most people never ask themselves: what should never be revealed? According to the strategic observations inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, there are 5 things powerful individuals never share with anyone. Not with friends, not with rivals, not even with those who seem loyal. Because once these things are exposed, your influence begins to shrink, quietly and invisibly. Today we are going to uncover these 5 hidden principles of power. But be warned, these ideas are not comfortable truths. They reveal something deep about human nature, something that Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago and that modern psychology continues to confirm. So listen carefully, because the first thing you must never reveal is something almost everyone talks about without realizing the damage it causes. And once you see it, you will never look at conversation the same way again. Number 1, never reveal your true intentions. Imagine sitting across from someone who smiles warmly and says, "Don't worry, I have nothing to hide." Most people would feel comfortable. They would think this person is honest, trustworthy, harmless. But Niccolò Machiavelli would quietly lean forward and whisper something very different. The moment a person reveals their intentions, they surrender their advantage. This idea may sound cold at first. After all, we grow up hearing that honesty is always the best policy. But Niccolò Machiavelli was not studying ideal worlds. He was studying real people, ambitious rulers, cunning diplomats, jealous rivals, and unpredictable allies. And what he discovered was both simple and disturbing. People rarely resist the temptation to interfere when they know your plans. The dangerous habit most people have. Look closely at everyday conversations. Someone says, "I'm planning to start a business next year." Another person proudly announces, "I'm working on a big promotion at my job." Someone else reveals, "I have a huge project coming. This will change everything for me." They say these things with excitement, but what they don't realize is that they are doing something extremely risky. They are revealing their intentions before the moment of action. And according to the strategic thinking of Niccolò Machiavelli, this creates 3 dangerous consequences. First, people begin to judge you before you succeed. Second, people begin to compete with you. And third, people may secretly sabotage you. Because when humans hear about a future success that hasn't happened yet, something strange occurs inside the mind. Curiosity turns into comparison. Comparison turns into jealousy, and jealousy quietly becomes resistance. What Niccolò Machiavelli observed in the courts of power. In the political courts of Renaissance Italy, rulers were surrounded by allies who smiled but secretly calculated. Niccolò Machiavelli watched powerful men make the same mistake again and again. A prince would announce his strategy too early. He would reveal his plan to conquer a territory. He would explain his next political move. At first, everyone would nod politely, but behind the scenes, whispers would begin. Rivals would prepare defenses. Allies would reconsider their loyalty. Enemies would unite. By simply speaking too soon, the prince had given everyone the chance to prepare against him. This is why Niccolò Machiavelli repeatedly warned that wise leaders conceal their intentions until the final moment, not because they are dishonest, but because strategy requires mystery. Modern psychology confirms something Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. When people know your plan, they unconsciously begin to insert themselves into the outcome. Some will support you, but many will question you. Others will doubt you, and a few will quietly hope you fail. Not always out of cruelty, but out of ego. Because your success forces others to ask a painful question. Why didn't I do that? This is why revealing your intentions creates invisible pressure around you. People begin offering opinions. They give advice you never asked for. They plant doubts. They challenge your ideas. Slowly, the clarity of your original vision becomes crowded by the voices of others. And suddenly, your path is no longer clear. This is the silent trap that Niccolò Machiavelli observed again and again. Now imagine the opposite scenario. A person works quietly. They speak normally. They reveal nothing unusual. No grand announcements, no dramatic declarations. But behind the scenes, they are preparing. Months pass. Then one day, something unexpected happens. They launch a successful project. They achieve a promotion. They build something impressive. And everyone around them reacts the same way. Wait, when did this happen? This is the power of concealed intentions. And according to Niccolò Machiavelli, it creates two powerful advantages. First, you avoid unnecessary resistance. Second, you control the moment of surprise. Surprise is one of the most powerful forces in strategy. When people cannot predict your move, they cannot prepare against it. There is a simple story that perfectly illustrates the wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli. Two young men worked at the same company. Both dreamed of starting their own businesses. The first man talked about his plan constantly. At lunch, after meetings, with co-workers. Everyone knew his vision. People congratulated him, but also questioned him. Are you sure it will work? That sounds risky. Maybe you should wait. Slowly, doubt crept into his mind. Months passed. His dream remained only a conversation. The second man behaved differently. He spoke very little about his plans. He worked quietly after hours. He studied, prepared, built connections. One day he resigned from the company. 3 months later, people discovered he had launched a successful startup. No warnings, no debates, no interference, just results. And if Niccolò Machiavelli had observed this situation, he would have simply smiled, because he had already written this lesson into the philosophy of power centuries earlier. How to apply this strategy in modern life? The lesson is not that you must lie, and it is not that you must isolate yourself. The lesson from Niccolò Machiavelli is far more subtle. Speak less about what you plan to do. Instead, focus on doing it. Here are simple rules inspired by this philosophy. 1. Share results, not intentions. Let people see what you have done, not what you are planning. 2. Keep early ideas private. When a goal is fragile, outside opinions can destroy it. 3. Avoid announcing ambitions too soon. Excitement feels good in the moment, but it weakens strategic advantage. 4. Let curiosity build around you. Mystery often creates more respect than explanation. 5. Reveal plans only when action is already unstoppable. These habits may feel unusual at first, but over time you will notice something powerful. People stop trying to influence your direction because they can no longer predict it. And that is exactly the strategic position Niccolò Machiavelli believed every intelligent person should maintain. Watch truly powerful individuals carefully. You will notice something interesting. They rarely announce their next move. They listen more than they speak. They reveal only small fragments of their thinking. Meanwhile, they observe everything. This is not arrogance, it is discipline. Because Niccolò Machiavelli understood something timeless about power. The person who controls information controls the game. And the moment you reveal your entire strategy, you are no longer the one in control. The hidden cost of talking too much. There is one more danger that Niccolò Machiavelli would warn us about. When you constantly talk about your plans, something strange happens inside your brain. You begin to feel a sense of false accomplishment. Talking about success releases small bursts of satisfaction. Your mind feels rewarded, even though nothing has actually been achieved. This psychological illusion tricks many people into believing they are making progress. But months later, they realize something painful. They spent more time talking about their goals than pursuing them. Silence protects you from this trap. So if we were to summarize this lesson from Niccolò Machiavelli, it would sound like this. Intentions should live in silence. Plans should grow in secrecy, and actions should appear only when they are already unstoppable. Because the moment you reveal your true intentions too early, you invite the world to interfere. But revealing your intentions is only the first mistake people make. There is something else many people expose without realizing how much power they are giving away. Something even more personal. Something that, once known, allows others to control your emotions, manipulate your behavior, and predict your reactions. It is a weakness that Niccolò Machiavelli observed in kings, generals, and ordinary people alike. And powerful individuals guard it more carefully than gold. In the next lesson, we will reveal the second thing you must never share with anyone. Because once people know it, they know exactly how to defeat you. Thing 2, never reveal your weaknesses. There is a moment in every person's life when they feel the urge to confess their struggles. A moment when the weight of frustration becomes heavy and the words escape almost naturally. I'm not good at this. I always fail when I try that. This is my biggest weakness. Most people believe this kind of honesty makes them relatable. They believe it builds trust. But Niccolò Machiavelli, who spent years observing the brutal games of power in Renaissance Italy, understood a far more uncomfortable truth. The world listens carefully when you reveal your weaknesses, not always to help you, but often to remember where you can be broken. Why revealing weakness is dangerous. Human beings are complex. Some people are kind, some are loyal, but many people are also competitive, insecure, and deeply observant. And when someone openly exposes their weakness, it creates something extremely valuable for others, a pressure point. In the political courts that Niccolò Machiavelli studied, rulers were surrounded by advisors, allies, and rivals. Everyone appeared polite, everyone appeared supportive, but beneath the surface, every individual was quietly studying the ruler, watching, listening, waiting. And the moment a ruler exposed a fear, a doubt, or a weakness, something dangerous happened. That weakness became a weapon in someone else's hands. The silent memory of people. One of the most fascinating truths about human psychology is this. People forget compliments quickly, but they remember weaknesses forever. You might casually say something like, "I'm terrible at speaking in front of people." At that moment, it feels like a small confession. But somewhere in the minds of those listening, a quiet note is made. Later, when competition appears, when authority is questioned, when influence is at stake, that remembered weakness may suddenly return. Someone might say, maybe he shouldn't lead the presentation. He already said he's not good at speaking. Or someone might subtly challenge you in that very area. Not because they hate you, but because humans instinctively test the limits of others. And once a limit is revealed, it becomes easy to push. This is exactly the kind of behavior Niccolò Machiavelli observed repeatedly among ambitious men in positions of power. There is a simple pattern Niccolò Machiavelli saw among leaders who lost their authority. The moment a ruler appeared uncertain, fearful, or emotionally fragile, the entire political atmosphere changed. Advisors began speaking more boldly, allies became less loyal, enemies became more aggressive. Nothing visible had changed, but the perception of strength had weakened. And in matters of power, perception often matters more than reality. This is why Niccolò Machiavelli believed that leaders must carefully guard their vulnerabilities, not because they are perfect, but because power requires the appearance of stability. Weakness does not mean insecurity. Now, this idea is often misunderstood. Keeping your weaknesses private does not mean pretending to be flawless. Even the most powerful individuals have fears, doubts, and struggles. But the key difference is who they reveal those weaknesses to. Strategic people understand something important. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Some people earn trust slowly. Others simply observe and collect information. And Niccolò Machiavelli warned that sharing vulnerabilities without caution gives others the ability to shape your destiny. Instead of announcing weaknesses openly, powerful individuals do something far more effective. They work on their weaknesses quietly. If they fear public speaking, they practice privately. If they struggle with confidence, they train their mind in silence. If they feel uncertain about a skill, they learn until that weakness disappears. But they rarely broadcast the struggle. Because they understand a powerful principle that Niccolò Machiavelli lived by, strength is often a matter of perception. And perception can be influenced by what you reveal and what you keep hidden. A modern example. Think about the workplace. Two employees are equally capable. The first one often says things like, "I'm not very good at negotiating. Numbers confuse me sometimes." The second employee says very little about personal limitations. Instead, they quietly improve their skills. Months later, when an important opportunity appears, perhaps a leadership role or a critical project, managers must decide who to trust. Even if both individuals have similar abilities, the decision often favors the person who appears more confident and stable. Not because they are perfect, but because they never advertise their weaknesses. This simple difference can shape entire careers, and it reflects the strategic wisdom Niccolò Machiavelli observed centuries ago. How to apply this lesson? The advice inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli is not about deception. It is about discipline. Here are simple rules to follow. 1. Do not casually confess weaknesses in public settings. 2. Work on personal flaws quietly and consistently. 3. Share vulnerabilities only with people who have proven loyalty over time. 4. Avoid labeling yourself with negative identities like, "I'm bad at this." 5. Let improvement speak louder than confession. Over time, these habits create something powerful. People begin to see you as stable, capable, and difficult to shake. And in the world of influence and competition, that perception alone can protect your position. If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he might say something like this: "Every person has weaknesses. The wise do not deny them, but neither do they display them for the world to study." Because the moment your weaknesses become public knowledge, they stop being private struggles. They become strategic information. And information, as Machiavelli understood better than most, is one of the most valuable currencies of power. But there is another mistake people make, one that seems harmless, even polite. People reveal it in casual conversations. They share it with friends. Sometimes they even brag about it. Yet, according to the strategic thinking inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, Revealing this third thing quietly reduces your influence and invites hidden enemies. And once people know it, they no longer see you the same way. In the next lesson, we will uncover the third thing powerful individuals never reveal to anyone. Number 3, never reveal how much you truly have. There is an old instinct that lives quietly inside every human being, an instinct that awakens the moment people see wealth, success, or advantage. It is the instinct to compare. Sometimes that comparison leads to admiration, but very often it leads to something far more dangerous: envy. More than 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli carefully observed this behavior among nobles, merchants, generals, and rulers in the courts of Renaissance Italy. He noticed a simple pattern. The moment a person openly displayed how much power, wealth, or influence they possessed, the atmosphere around them changed. Smiles became tighter, friendship became cautious, and somewhere in the room, someone quietly began to think, how can I take a piece of that? The hidden problem with revealing too much. Most people believe success should be shared loudly. They celebrate it publicly. They explain it in detail. They show everyone exactly what they have gained. But Niccolò Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable about human nature. Not everyone celebrates your prosperity. Some people study it, they measure it, they calculate it, and in some cases, they resent it. This is why throughout history, wise individuals often practiced strategic modesty, not because they lacked confidence, but because they understood that exposed wealth invites attention, and attention invites problems. Modern psychology confirms what Niccolò Machiavelli observed centuries ago. When people see someone who appears significantly more successful than themselves, the mind naturally begins to make comparisons. Sometimes those comparisons inspire motivation, but very often they produce quiet resentment. The mind whispers, "Why them and not me?" This feeling may never be spoken aloud, but it can change behavior in subtle ways. Support becomes hesitation. Kindness becomes distance. And in competitive environments, business, politics, careers, that silent envy can slowly transform into obstruction. The person who once seemed friendly may suddenly become less cooperative, not because of open hostility, but because your success exposed a difference they struggle to accept. This is exactly the kind of human reaction Niccolò Machiavelli warned powerful individuals to anticipate. A lesson from everyday life. Imagine 2 individuals who achieve financial success. The first person constantly talks about it. They describe their income, their investments, their expensive purchases. At first, people react with excitement, but over time, something subtle begins to change. Some friends grow uncomfortable, others begin making jokes, a few start keeping distance. Now imagine the second person. They live comfortably but speak very little about their resources. They maintain humility in conversation. They allow others to underestimate them. This second individual often moves through the world with far less resistance. And if Niccolò Machiavelli observed this difference, he would recognize it instantly, because he understood that visible power attracts both admiration and opposition. This does not mean you must hide success completely, but it does mean controlling how much of it becomes visible. Powerful individuals often follow a quiet rule inspired by the wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli. Let people see your character before they see your wealth, because character invites respect, but visible advantage can sometimes invite competition, requests, or jealousy. Strategic modesty creates protection. It allows you to move through social environments without becoming the center of unnecessary attention. And in the world of influence, the person who attracts the least envy often maintains the most stability. If Niccolò Machiavelli were advising someone today, his guidance might sound something like this. Do not measure your worth by how loudly you display success. Measure it by how securely you maintain it. Here are simple principles inspired by that mindset. 1. Avoid discussing exact financial details with most people. 2. Do not use success as a tool for validation. 3. Let achievements reveal themselves naturally over time. 4. Remain humble even when you possess great advantages. 5. Remember that privacy often protects prosperity. These habits create something extremely valuable: freedom from unnecessary attention. And in many situations, the person who moves quietly is the one who maintains control of their destiny. One of the deepest observations Niccolò Machiavelli made about power is this: people are far more comfortable around someone they believe is similar to them. But the moment a visible gap appears, in wealth, influence, or status, human behavior changes. This is why wise individuals allow others to discover their success slowly, rather than announcing it loudly. Because sometimes the greatest protection is not secrecy, but measured visibility. But even wealth and advantage are not the most dangerous things to reveal. There is another habit that quietly weakens a person's power. A habit so common that most people do it every single day without thinking. They talk about it in conversations. They complain about it. They explain it emotionally. Yet according to the strategic philosophy inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, revealing this fourth thing slowly erodes your authority and invites manipulation. And once people hear it, they begin to see exactly how to control you. In the next lesson, we will uncover the fourth thing powerful individuals never reveal to anyone. Thing 4. Never reveal your emotional triggers. There is a simple way to control almost any person. You do not need money. You do not need authority. You do not even need strength. All you need is to know what makes them react emotionally. The moment someone knows what angers you, what hurts you, what makes you insecure, they gain something extremely valuable: control over your reactions. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli carefully observed this pattern in the political courts of Italy. Rulers who could not control their emotions were often the easiest to manipulate. All it took was the right insult, the right rumor, or the right pressure, and suddenly the ruler would react impulsively. In that moment, the opponent no longer needed to defeat them. They simply needed to trigger them. The trap of emotional transparency. Many people today believe that openly expressing every emotion is a sign of authenticity. They reveal what frustrates them. They talk about what offends them. They explain what makes them angry. At first, this may feel honest and natural, but Niccolò Machiavelli would see something else happening. He would see a person handing others the instructions for controlling them. Because once people know your emotional triggers, they can predict your behavior. They know what will distract you. They know what will provoke you. They know how to push you off balance. And once your reactions become predictable, your power begins to weaken. Why emotional control creates authority. Look carefully at people who command respect. One of the most noticeable traits they possess is emotional stability. They do not explode easily. They do not panic under pressure. They do not reveal every frustration. This does not mean they lack emotions. It simply means they control when those emotions appear. This was a quality that Niccolò Machiavelli deeply admired in strategic leaders. Because a calm person is extremely difficult to manipulate. If insults do not move them, if criticism does not shake them, if pressure does not provoke them, then opponents lose one of their most powerful tools. A simple, modern example. Imagine two individuals in a competitive workplace. The first person reacts strongly to criticism. Whenever someone questions their work, they become defensive and frustrated. Soon, coworkers learn something important. If we challenge him publicly, he will lose his composure. And once people know that, some will use it. Now imagine the second person. They listen calmly, even when criticism feels unfair. They rarely react emotionally in public. Because of this, others cannot easily predict how to provoke them. And as Niccolò Machiavelli understood, unpredictability creates psychological strength. People are less likely to challenge someone they cannot easily control. The wisdom inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli is simple but powerful. Not every emotion needs to be displayed. Strong individuals learn to separate feeling from reaction. They may feel anger, disappointment, or frustration just like anyone else, but they choose carefully when and where those emotions appear. Here are a few practical principles inspired by this mindset. 1. Avoid revealing what easily offends or angers you. 2. Do not react immediately to provocation. 3. Observe situations calmly before responding. 4. Maintain composure in public environments. 5. Remember that emotional control often creates respect. Over time, this discipline builds a powerful reputation. People begin to see you as steady, difficult to provoke, and mentally strong. And in environments of competition, that perception alone can protect your influence. If Niccolò Machiavelli were advising someone today, he might say, "The man who reveals every emotion gives others the strings by which he may be moved." Powerful individuals understand that emotions are natural, but they also understand that revealing emotional triggers is like revealing the weak points of a fortress. Once those weak points are known, they can be targeted again and again. But there is one final thing that many people share openly without realizing the cost. They talk about it when they feel proud. They discuss it when they seek validation. They reveal it when they want recognition. Yet, according to the strategic wisdom inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, revealing this last thing quietly reduces your influence and weakens your position. And the strange part is, almost everyone reveals it far too easily. In the final lesson, we will uncover the fifth and most subtle thing powerful individuals never share with anyone. Number 5. Never reveal your next move. There is a moment just before every important decision, a moment when a person stands at the edge of action. Most people feel an urge during this moment, the urge to talk about what they are about to do. They share their next step. They explain their upcoming decision. They describe the direction they are about to take. It feels natural. But according to the strategic wisdom inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli, this habit quietly destroys one of the most powerful advantages a person can possess: the power of unpredictability. Because the moment people know your next move, they begin preparing their response. Throughout history, victories often belong to those who acted without warning. Generals, rulers, and strategists understood that surprise creates confusion, and confusion weakens opposition. This was something Niccolò Machiavelli observed repeatedly while studying political power in Renaissance Italy. Leaders who openly discussed their next action often found their rivals already waiting. Allies had time to reconsider. Enemies had time to prepare. Obstacles had time to grow. But leaders who moved quietly created a different result. Their actions arrived unexpectedly, and when people are unprepared, even small moves can have powerful effects. The problem with announcing your moves. In modern life, many people reveal their next step too easily. Someone announces a career move before it happens. Someone shares a big decision long before it is finalized. Someone talks openly about a plan they intend to execute. At first, this seems harmless, but once the information spreads, the environment around that decision begins to change. People offer opinions. Some discourage it, others compete with it, and in certain situations, someone may even move ahead of you using the same idea. This is why Niccolò Machiavelli believed that plans should remain hidden until action is already in motion. Because the longer a plan is exposed, the more chances others have to interfere. The quiet strategy of powerful people. Observe individuals who operate with real influence. They rarely reveal their next step too early. Instead, they move quietly. They prepare carefully. They allow their decisions to become visible only when they are already unfolding. To outsiders, it often appears sudden, but in reality, the preparation may have taken months or even years. This habit creates a powerful psychological effect. People begin to realize something about you. Your moves cannot be easily predicted, and unpredictability makes others cautious. They think twice before opposing someone whose next action is impossible to anticipate. This was one of the strategic behaviors Niccolò Machiavelli respected deeply in effective leaders. How to apply this principle? The lesson is not secrecy for the sake of secrecy. It is strategic timing. You do not need to hide every thought, but you should protect the moment before action. Here are simple principles inspired by the mindset of Niccolò Machiavelli. 1. Do not announce important decisions before they are secure. 2. Allow actions to speak before explanations appear. 3. Share plans only with those who are directly involved. 4. Move quietly until momentum is already established. 5. Let results reveal your direction. When you follow this discipline, something interesting happens. Your life begins to feel more controlled and more focused. Instead of managing other people's reactions, you simply move forward. And by the time others notice, the decision has already been made. If Niccolò Machiavelli were to summarize this final principle, it might sound like this. A wise person does not reveal the path they will take until they have already begun walking it. Because in the delicate game of influence, information is never neutral. Information is power, and the person who controls when that information appears often controls the outcome. Across centuries of human ambition, conflict, and strategy, Niccolò Machiavelli reached a simple but powerful understanding about human nature. Power is rarely lost through force alone. More often, it is lost through careless revelation. By speaking too freely, people unknowingly hand others the tools needed to challenge them. That is why the most strategic individuals protect 5 things carefully. They do not reveal their true intentions before action. They do not openly display their weaknesses. They avoid exposing the full extent of their wealth or advantage. They guard their emotional triggers with discipline, and they never announce their next move too soon. These are not rules of deception. They are rules of strategic awareness. Because the world is filled with observers, some friendly, some curious, and some quietly competitive. And as Niccolò Machiavelli understood long ago, the person who reveals everything about themselves becomes easy to predict, easy to challenge, and easy to control. But the person who moves with measured silence becomes something very different. They become unreadable. And when people cannot read you, they cannot easily defeat you. So remember this final thought inspired by the wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli. Speak carefully, reveal slowly, act decisively, because in the quiet balance between silence and action, true power is often born. If you found wisdom in the strategic thinking of Niccolò Machiavelli, then this channel is for you. Here we explore the hidden truths of power, human nature, psychology, and influence. Lessons that history has quietly preserved for centuries. So if you want to understand how the world really works, how powerful minds think, and how to move through life with strategy instead of impulse, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because every week we uncover more timeless lessons from great thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli, translated into practical wisdom for modern life. Also, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who values knowledge and strategy. And in the comments, tell me this: which of the 5 lessons do you think is the most powerful? Because sometimes a single insight about human nature can change the way you see the world forever. Until the next video, remember the quiet wisdom inspired by Niccolò Machiavelli. Those who reveal everything about themselves become easy to control, but those who master silence often master the game.